Hey Steelers Nation, it's Joe Rockey coming back at you here. And in today's episode, I'm going to be breaking down the slot cornerback position and look upon how likely it is that some of the unknown guys could make an impact on the roster and actually be relevant to the field. And how the Steelers are going to be looking at covering the slot position overall, particularly that middle of the field, which is so vital. So imagine a coverage package when we're playing dime where Keanu Neal is your center of the field player. He's the only middle linebacker on the field. You have Porter and Peterson on the outside, Minka and KZ over the top, and then the battle for slot corner really shapes out. Because slot corner is going to go a lot of different ways. I don't believe that Chandon Sullivan is the long-term solution. What I think is much more likely is Levi Wallace steps down into the position, and potentially we get an outside person like Trice or Pierre possibly learning how to step down. Because if I was in the camp in town talking to Trice and Pierre in particularly, you want to make the NFL, the second easiest way to make the Steelers roster on defense is the nickel corner. Because Chandon Sullivan is not very good at coverage either. Chandon Sullivan has allowed over 100 quarterback rating and doesn't create incomplete passes. Your job as a coverage corner, whether it be inside or outside, is to create incomplete passes, period. And there's lots of ways you do that, right? You can do that by deflecting the pass. You can do that by covering the guy so smotheredly that he has to throw the ball out of bounds, like Trubisky. That's the job description. So when I look at the Steelers, and I'm looking at the inside corner game, the nickel corner and the dime corner, I'm seeing a lot of potential for younger guys like Trice to make this roster, like Pierre to reinvent himself. Because Pierre was an undrafted free agent of 2020 who has made flashes but hasn't really been able to stick, which is common for undrafted free agents, right? But will they be able to step in? And the other name that I want to throw in this possibility of stepping down and maybe playing the big nickel type role, the big dime, covering the tight end, however you want to phraseology this, is both Trey Norwood and Miles Killebrew. Both of those guys have been with the team a while. They have learned how we want to cover. And more importantly, they were in the same room as Edmonds, who was amazing at covering tight ends. Now, Minka certainly can do that. I'm not trying to diminish Minka's skill set at all. But Minka has the ability to be Troy Polamalu in free range and do everything. So I don't really want to say we're man covering him on someone, because then the quarterback can literally take Minka out of the game by not throwing him. I'd much rather see Minka in a robber style system where he can just go out. And then your inside coverage guys, your nickels, your heavy dimes, your pure nickel corner, they are the ones being in the man coverage extensively to cover them. So I'm throwing all these names out here because while Killebrew, Trey Norwood, and to a degree Chandon Sullivan are kind of no names in the Steelers because of where they're slated to be or their longevity here in Pittsburgh, I don't want to throw out the possibility that Corey Trice, Pierre, or Levi Wallace step into that mix either, because Chandon Sullivan leaves a lot to be desired. And if I'm drawing up an attack plan against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense for week 1, I am saying quarterbacks, get the ball out of your hands instantly. Don't let TJ sack you, and attack Chandon Sullivan. Granted, the Steelers know that too, and I'd have Minka over the top with them, but that's the initial starting point. And that's acknowledging the fact that there's probably going to be a starting rookie on my number 2 receiver. That's just the low point of the defense and what Chandon Sullivan brings to the table. Now, does that mean that Porter's going to get a free ride or anything like that? No, absolutely not. But if I was going to attack the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, that would be my first read on any pressure's coming, TJ's angry, get the ball out. Sullivan's the sore thumb of this defense, with the exception of the middle linebackers I talked about yesterday. That's why I think Keon O'Neal is really going to be more of the inside in the box presence than a traditional safety, if you will, and why this whole opening happens. The bottom line is the Pittsburgh Steelers, close to the line of scrimmage coverage game, is the weakest part of this defense. And hopefully between yesterday's episode and today's, I've given you guys a couple of names to look at. Yeah, we're going to be bouncing around and trying to fill that hole, and it might be something that the Steelers are dealing with the entire season long. And quite frankly, it might be something that we look at the year and say, it's our second round pick next year, guys, is the nickel corner. You know, that's totally possible. And do I think that that's probable? If I had to pick right now, yeah. I think that if you're looking at pure roster creation for the 2024 draft, it's probably bringing in another elite nose, knowing that at some point Cam is not going to be Cam forever, and fixing the middle of the field coverage. Because right now those are the two weakest points. They're also the two hardest things to replace via free agency. And when we look at this overall, the Steelers are in such a strong defensive standpoint. I do believe they're going to lead the league in sacks again. And if you lead the league in sacks, people are going to be putting out bad and pressured passes. That's a virtue of the game. And I just hate to see a sore thumb out there make it easy on people and just give easy outs to quarterbacks that, quite frankly, we're not playing a lot of loaded quarterbacks this year. The exception of Watson and Burrow, obviously, there's not too many other quarterbacks on this roster that scare me. Maybe Lawrence steps into that class. There's no other one in that division I'm worried about. I look to the NFC West. Geno Smith ain't scary. You know, Brock Purdy isn't even playing in week one. We're probably going to be playing the guy from Carolina last year, who's a complete and utter joke. And the other two probably are trying to throw in for the first pick overall in the Rams in Arizona. So there's no quarterback that I'm like, he can put the ball downfield and really attack Porter. They're going to attack the easy spots of the field. Quite frankly, that's all Lamar Jackson does, is throw it over the middle, normally short. So I look at this, I think the Steelers are built great, absolutely great, to shut down the Bengals offense. And in the best way possible, especially since the Bengals got rid of their tight end. And I think that this is a great matchup, and this is classic Steelers. Win your division. Build yourself to do that. And I just worry about this one spot, middle of the field. So Steelers Nation, I appreciate you guys being with me here today. And tomorrow I'm going to be covering another spot where I think a rookie has a chance to really make some thunder on this roster. And that's going to be the running back room.